Hello, everyone. It's Pro White Male Leadership. We're here with another live. Today, we are going to be discussing a few reports. One of the reports will be the Monahan Report, poor Black women, and also non-Black single mothers with Black fathers. Today, I have Brent with me. You guys know him and know his channel. Brent, do you hear me good?
Yeah, I hear you. Good to be on here today, and can't wait for this.
Yep. So, one of my subscribers actually sended me a report, and this report comes from this is a copy of the original report, and it is a report called "Poor Black Woman." It's including birth control pills in Black children. And this takes place in New York, but it also talks about other cities nationwide where they seen the same pattern happening. So I wanted to go through this briefly because I feel that there's a behavioral pattern that I'm noticing. And like I said, this is a document here. It is from September 11th, 1968. And before I get started, I just wanted to read a little bit of what it says. I'm going to start from the very beginning, and then I would like your opinion on this, and we'll go from there. So it says here, birth control pills in Black children. The brothers are calling on the sisters not to take the pill. It is the system's method of exterminating Black people here and abroad. To take the pill means that we are contributing to our own genocide. However, in not taking the pill, we must have a new sense of value when we produce children. We are aiding the revolution of the revolution in the form of national building. Our children must have pride in their history, in their heritage, in their beauty. Our children must not be brainwashed as we were. Brent, with that, those couple of that little paragraph right there, what do you think about that?
Um, well, the thing with the birth control and the using it as a system of controlling the Black population, I think that's what they're talking about. And there were efforts in there to do that with not just birth control, but with like sterilization and the cut down on the population, and also dealing with the welfare system and stuff. And I'm probably getting a little far ahead. But I don't think people should. I think when it comes to reproduction, we got to be responsible. And, I think we all need to reproduce. It's a natural thing to keep the human race going. But we got to do it responsible, not just procreate and create children with no stability, no balance, no mother and father, or just one. And usually it's the mother, probably about 99% of the time, right? The mother raises the child. And what that does is you create more people, but the thing of it is they don't have the stability, the balance. They don't have the tools really to compete. And I think some people looked at this as keep the population down so there ain't an excess of people. And, I think they looked at it as a worldwide thing. But yeah, there was an interracial element to it. They wanted the Black population to be held down, sure. But I'm not for controlling people reproducing. I'm for them doing it with responsibility because, your society, your legacy, and everything depends on it. Are they going to be successful or be in poverty? I mean, it's just simple as that. But sorry, I kind of probably got ahead of the, got a little bit ahead, but that's just
No
my
problem,
thoughts.
Brent. But I mean, that is basically where we're heading, and that is the direction that we're going to be headed in. I am going to continue reading the next paragraph, and then I will ask you your opinion again. So, what it says here in the next paragraph: procreation is beautiful, especially if we are devoted to the revolution, which means that our value system be altered to include the revolution of the responsibility. A good deal of the supremacist white efforts to sterilize the world's non-whites out of existence is turning towards the Black people of America. New trends in race control have led to archetypes of genocide to believe that sterilization projects aimed at the Black man in the United States can cure American internal problems.
Wow.
What do you think about that? I mean, it's basically describing what was going on in that time.
Yeah, I think some people looked at it as a way of population control, and then the white supremacist theory that they're superior and this group is inferior, and the control of the population. But I think I think this kind of went beyond race to a lot of people with the theory that the planet's overpopulated. You've heard that, or keeping numbers down. We've looked at China, what they've done. Got rid of their female babies, and now they have so many men and less women, and it's. I think it's dangerous when you start getting into trying to control populations and groups of people. But I think some people had the idea of this being a responsible thing. Like, hey, we got a lot of out of wedlock birth rates, the welfare system, a lot of money's going into that. If there's less children to take care of, we're spending less money. And I think there was a mindset of that too. Yeah, there was a racial element, no doubt. And I think Margaret Sanger back in the day was comparing white people as flowers to Black people as weeds, and kind of weeding out to have the more superior. There was a mindset of that too. My belief is, what, we all need to reproduce. I'm not for controlling that. I just feel people need to be responsible when they do that. If you can't afford 15 kids, why bring them into the world? But I don't think a government should be in control of you having children, but you got to be responsible too. And I also believe that the governments shouldn't be responsible taking care of all your kids you create. That's your responsibility as parents. So what I'm seeing in this, and there was some trends going, in the Black community where Black men were abandoning their children and wives and stuff. And I think that was part of this thing. Of course, all races did it. You got to put that disclaimer. But I think this is where they're centered. And I think Black people at the time were looking at it, okay, this is white supremacy trying to exterminate us. And, there's some racists that probably had that dream of just being an all-white society. But, I just think there was so many factors, I think, in this. And then the Black people are looking like, hey, they're trying to get rid of us. I don't think that was the total deal. I think it was to hold the population down, keep it segregated, and, but, when you don't take care of your families, you give so-called white supremacy power because you're not taking responsibility, and you give them ammunition to shine a bad light on you. And, You don't fight it with having more children. What you do is you have children, but you take care of them. You teach them. You create law-abiding citizens, people that can compete. Because when you do it with the single mother, they can't compete with children that have both parents. Really, and I don't care what racial group you come from. If you come from a single mother, you have two strikes against you. You really do. And most likely you're going to be in poverty because there's not the resources. You have what your mom can do and what the state can do. And, the so-called fight white supremacy, what you need to do is marry the women in your community, have families, raise up your children, teach them right, and so they can compete in the world. But so many people are not doing that. I'm sorry. I just got a little.
Absolutely not, Brent. I'm here for your opinion. Absolutely, because what I find very interesting about this article is that it's not saying about really Black people. What I find interesting, and I'm going to read this line again, new trends in the race control have led the archetypes of genocide to believe that sterilization projects aimed at the Black man in the United States can cure American internal problems. I'm by hearing that line, because I found that very interesting, because that doesn't sound like a group of people. It sounds like the men are the problem. I mean, would you if I'm wrong, please correct me.
I can see where you're coming with that, because it does speak about the Black man. And look, back in the day, men were considered the leader of the community, of the family. And when it's having problems, who's to blame? And I believe this to this day. If, in your community, it depends on what the man does. Let's be honest. We're in control as men, and we decide the fate of our families, our children, and our community. And I think they were looking at it like Black men are the problem. They were looking at it like they're not taking care of their families. And it's interesting because they didn't, like you said, they didn't say Black people. They said Black man. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify if I read that correctly. So I'm gonna move on to the next paragraph, and then we'll move to and then I'll ask your opinion, and then we'll go to the next page.
Okay.
Under the cover of an alleged campaign to avert property, I'm sorry, hopefully I'm saying that correctly, white supremacist Americans and their dopes are pushing all out drive to put rigid birth control measures into every Black home. No such drive exists within the white American world. In some cities, Peekskill, Harlem, Mississippi, and Alabama, welfare boards are doing their best to force Black women receiving aid to submit to sterilization. This discussed attack on Black future generation is rapidly picking. Sorry about that. Give me 1 second. Is rapidly picking. This country is prepared to exterminate people. I'm sorry, I just couldn't see the rest of it because it's so tiny. But from what we read in that paragraph, Brent, what is your opinion on what was going on in that time?
Well, from what I look at and read, I wasn't around in that time, but I think what was going on is I think there was a welfare issue going on in the Black community, and there were white people on welfare too. But I think these welfare boards were looking at it like, hey, why don't we save money by controlling the population? And I know that sounds horrible for them to say that, but they're looking at it, I think, at dollar wise. And they probably had the idea that black people just do these things, and we got to control their reproduction. And but it wasn't I don't think this was aimed at black people as a whole. I think it was aimed at black people on government assistance, single mothers. I think that's what it was really aimed at. And I'm not saying it's right, but they're looking at it at a dollar sense. And yes, I'm sure there's some racial bias within their committee too, but when we look at it and you're getting money from the state to take care of you because of decisions you made in your life, the government's going to try to control you in a sense. And back then, today that'd be illegal, try to sterilize people. And then, you can't do that. But back then, I think the government had a little bit more power where they can coerce these women to sterilize themselves to continue to get the government benefits to take care of the children they do have. I don't agree with population control and sterilizing nobody. I don't think it's anybody's right to do that to another human being. But I do believe that the government's not responsible for your decisions, whether you're black or white or whatever. If you have children and you can't take care of them, it's not anybody else's fault but yours, and it's not the government's fault. Okay? And this is an extreme thing that the government was doing, and it's not right. But when it comes to money, government budgets, they're looking at how can we save money. And I know the government's not really responsible with money, but back then they were a lot more responsible with that. I just, but I just think, my opinion, if you have children, it's your responsibility. And if you're the man that impregnated the woman, it's on you. Okay. And you should pay for that child. And if it was held on people's responsibility, yeah, people would go hungry and it'd be horrible. That would be the only way to fix it, but you can't fix it that way because we don't want people to starve, right? So we're in a catch-22 with this.
Thank you so much for your opinion, Brent. I just wanted to go on this again because I couldn't really read some of it. I'm so sorry about that. So what it was saying is that, so yes, this discussed attack on Black future generation is rapidly picking up popularity among determined genocidal engineers. This country is, I don't see that word right there, prepared to exterminate people by the pill or by the bomb. Therefore, we must draw strength from ourselves. Could you tell your opinion about that? And also, how bad do you think that this problem was during this time that they would come up with this conclusion?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting how they said extermination by the pill. Wasn't the pill offered to every woman at that time? People use birth control all the time because they want to control when they want to have kids, right? But it's interesting that they put that in there, by the pill or the bomb. What is they referring to? World War II? The atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Is that what they're saying, that white people are want to just eliminate other people? I think it's going, that's just interesting that was in there. I don't think it was an extermination campaign. It wasn't. We can look at the Nazis with the Jews, and that was an extermination campaign. That's what that really looks like. I think this was a campaign to get people on low-income people low income black people. I think it was targeted at that to get them to have less children. And like I said, I don't agree with it, but that's what I think where they were going with it. I think money was a factor. I think they felt it would be better to have less children out of wedlock. And it's probably a racial element. They probably, I'm sure there's people in the community that didn't care for black people, so they felt less is better. I think that's where this was going. But I think on the other flip side, they're looking at it like they just want to destroy the black man and just destroy the family. They might have been okay with doing that, but I don't think this was targeted at that. I think it was low income black women to have less children. But that's my opinion. Now, I wasn't in the board that decided this or the committees or whatever, but I think that's my opinion looking at it in today's world, reading what I read and what you've read. I think that's what I see in it. Now, you tell me I'm wrong or...
Absolutely not. I believe that they had an abundance of children and women that they had to take care of, and they were overwhelmed. And I'm not saying there wasn't a racial issue to it, but that is what that's what I'm reading. That they were overwhelmed with so many black women and children that needed aid.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting from it. So moving forward, I'm going to read the next paragraph here. This is the sister's reply. This was typed in September 11th, 1968, and it says, "Dear brothers, poor black sisters decide for themselves whether to have a baby or not to have a baby. If we take the pills or practice birth control in other ways, it's because of poor black men. Now here's how it is. Poor black men won't support their families, won't stick by their women. All they think about is the street, dope, and liquor. Women, a piece of ass, and their cars. That's all that counts. Poor black women would be fools to sit up in the house with a whole lot of children and eventually go crazy, sick, heartbroken, no place to go, no sign of affection, nothing. Middle-class white men have always done this to their women, only more sophisticated like." From reading that paragraph there, what is your opinion on basically what I suspected as well? This seems to be an issue where the men are not leading in the community. They're not being fathers. And it seems as if the system is now fed up of taking care of single black mothers and children. That's what I'm getting. Could you correct me?
Yeah. No. You're right. What I see in this, the sister's reply seems a reply for divestment back then. Look, when the men ain't doing what they're supposed to, white supremacy will thrive. When black men don't take care of their kids and wives, white supremacy grows stronger. You know why? Because they have ammunition to attack the black family. But what I'm seeing here, and I believe this, that it's the men's fault. Okay. And the women are seeing that, and this is interesting. Back in 68, okay, black women were being exploited then, exploited now. And these men are caught up in the image and the here and now and what they can get from it. And it sounds like a pimp and player culture instead of a husband father culture. And black women are seeing the problems then within the men in their community. And they're saying, look, if we choose to do birth control, that's our choice because you're not doing what you're supposed to. And to just have children, look, you're just creating people in poverty, and look, we're going to have problems with poverty and people are going to suffer as it is. You need to be responsible with your reproduction. Okay. I believe reproduction is a beautiful thing from God, but we got to use common sense. And if you're going to procreate, be there and raise your children, men. And this is where this, and the sisters are seeing it not so much as a racial, oh, they're coming for the black man. They're saying, no, this is what you're doing to us. And we have to have the birth control because of you. And look, if we didn't have segregation laws back in the day, we'd be looking at a whole different world. Most of us would be biracial, I believe, because black women seen the writing on the wall back then. And if white men could see the true beauty and how valued black women were back then, we'd be in a different world right now. I totally believe that. And we're headed that way anyway. But, this says it all. It's the men's fault, in my opinion, right there from that letter.
And what I find interesting about this is that this was in 1968. So what year was Loving versus Virginia passed? Again, 1968. Is that correct? Or a year or 65?
No, it was, let me think. Gosh, I've done videos on this. It was, let me look it up. I'm sorry.
No problem. I think it's 1965. So this is 3 years in
Virginia.
Yeah.
Okay. What year was the Loving versus Virginia case? I think it was 67. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
June 12th, 1967.
Okay, so this article was written in 1968. Loving versus Virginia passed in 1967.
Yes.
So basically, during this time, Black women had the option to divest.
Yes.
And I'm just wondering right now where we would be at this point if Black women chose to do that in 1968.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think a lot of it was we were still in the segregated mindset. I think we were still wanting to be separated. But if we were in the mindset we got today, back then, I think interracial marriages would have blown up. There would have been a lot more Loving versus Virginia cases. Well, not cases because it was legal, but more marriages. There was still, you were still, how can I say it? You were still treated poorly by marrying a Black woman as a white man back then. You were still ridiculed. You were still held back from jobs and treated horribly. And the Black women were also. So for them that did do that back then, they did it for pure love because they went through hell. But if it wasn't that way back then, we'd be in a different world. And it's not, and I don't think it's that Black women and white men didn't want to do it. It was just that they felt they couldn't because of societal barriers. And still, even though segregation was gone legally, it was still happening. And people still segregating themselves today. It is what it is. But it's changing. This kind of thing's going to take time. But we're seeing the numbers grow and grow. And I think 2023 is going to be a powerful year with that. But I wish divestment would have been a thing back then. I wish Black women would have and white men would have just got together back then, because I think we'd be better off in a society. And then the ones that wanted to be race loyal, I think they would have had better options because they had no choice. When you have to compete, you have to be better. When you don't, when you're held a king for not having a job and not doing anything just because you're Black like the woman you're with, then nothing's going to come from that. And we're seeing that's a lot of what's going on. Black women are the workhorse in their community, and they've been carrying it for so long. Even in the churches, Black churches, there's mostly women. And It just, and they'll say, well, white churches are that way too. Yeah, but it's more extreme. Yeah, and black women, I think, need to divest. Just looking at this, and this is in the 60s. So, but we see it in history. We see the delusion. We see the crap that was going on and how black women were treated within their own community back then. And it's the same thing today. Anyway.
Yeah, no problem, Brent. So I'm going to move on to the next paragraph. So the next paragraph says, so when Whitey put out the pill and poor black sisters spread the word, we saw how simple it was not to be a fool for men anymore. Politically, we would say men could no longer exploit us sexually or for money and leave the babies with us to bring up. That's what the first step is in our waking up. Black women have always been told by black men that we were black, ugly, evil, bitches, and whores. In other words, we were the real N-word in this society, oppressed by whites, male and female, and the black man too. Could you tell me your opinion on, because that kind of sounds like the same stuff that they tell us to this day. What are your opinions on that paragraph right there?
Yeah, it sounds like black women were exploited back then. They're exploited today, and left to take care of the children, and told that nobody wants them, that they're ugly, and all this other crap. Yeah, it sounds like today. Not much has changed from the 1960s to now. And Malcolm X back in the 60s gave a speech on how black women are the least protected, most disrespected. And, that was before this. And it's the same thing. Black women are still the least protected, most disrespected. But yeah, black women are the most successful and doing the most and the most loving. Look, we need divestment to happen. We need white men and other men to invest. Invest in the black woman. The world would be so much better. We would have so much better marriages. Look, if you look at the stats, marriages are best between black women and white men. And even economically, they do better. I see it in my own life. I do so much better than my peers that live around me. And I do believe it's because I have a black wife. And yeah, I put in the work too, but it's like with black women, you got that turbo, you got that little extra. You just, yeah, I'm sorry, I don't want to go into that. I'll be up here all day talking about that. But the thing of it is we're seeing the delusion back then that we see today. Black women being blamed along with white supremacy. Here we go. All to get to the black man. But the black man ain't marrying the black woman in a high rate. Only 24% of black men marry black women. Okay? Because in the way I get that number is 27% of black women are married. Well, 4% are married to white men, according to the stat I see. So does that tell you really if black men really love black women? If they did, they'd marry them. I believe that, because if you really truly love somebody with true love, you want them to yourself forever. You don't want them for a good time, the here and now, to fulfill your desire. You want them forever. Anyway.
Brent, this is why you're here. So I'm going to move to the next paragraph. Now, a lot of the black brothers are into new bag. Black women are being asked to militant black brothers not to practice birth control because it is in form of the whitey committing genocide on black people. Well, true enough, but it takes two to participate. genocide, and Black women are able to decide for themselves, just like poor people all over the world. Whether they will submit to genocide for us, birth control is freedom to fight genocide of Black women and children. What do you think about that?
Mm, that's interesting. I think the men are like saying this is genocide. They're taking us out with birth control. But I think the women are looking at it as freedom. They're not, they can have the children when they want to, when they see fit. And they kind of have to with the what they're dealt with. Because if the man's not going to provide, I mean, are they supposed to just have Black children to keep the Black race going? I think that's what the men want them to do. But the thing of it is, the way you keep the race going, sort of say, is you get married and you help raise those children. If you want your numbers to grow, you also want not just to have more numbers, but have more success also. But they're looking at it as genocide. And I think Black women are looking at not having birth control as a way of genocide because you're putting them and the children in danger. Because they're kind of having to fend for themselves, other than welfare, really. I mean, maybe I'm off, but that's kind of what I got out of it.
No problem, Brent. Your opinion is very important. I think that it's very interesting because the reason why it's so important for me to bring white men on my platform to speak is because just reading this document to see what was going on back then, and I feel that white men do need to have a voice. And I'm not saying that there was no racism back then, but it does seem that white men in that time was overwhelmed with so many Black women with Black children that they have to take care of. Could you correct me if I'm wrong? If do you believe that what was going on? Because that's what it seems like to me, that the system was just fed up of taking care of so many single Black mothers and children.
Yeah, I think so. And like I said, I think there's a racial element. So they didn't feel too highly of Black people, a lot of them. So they really like, hey, they're just having kids out of wedlock. Where they might see some white people doing it and not be so angry at it. There was probably bias there. But there was a big group of single mothers back then too, Black women. And it does become a burden within society because and regardless of who's doing it, if I decide to go out there and sleep with women and have children and not take care of them and just bounce from one woman to the next, my nation, my state has to pay for that. And it's not their fault. It's like, and we all pay for it through our taxes, right? And there's probably pressure on the people to their, state officials and their senators to say, hey, look, we're paying a lot of taxes because of these programs, because they're having children not being married, and we have to pay for them. That's not fair. And we hear this all the time, right? But it's a catch-22. What are we going to do? Just let the kids starve? Believe it or not, even in our racist society, we did as a nation have heart to where we paid for the single mothers, Black mothers. We did. And, people say, well, look at what white people did so evil. And yeah, you're right. I don't dispute none of that. But what I'm saying is, when you do not take care of your children, somebody else has to. And when the men are not marrying their women, it's like we have to marry the women for them. Whether we're doing it through welfare, through our taxes, or I just think we just need to marry Black women and just make them our wives. That way we can give them the resources and take care of the children also. I know that sounds weird, extreme, but tell me I'm wrong.
Absolutely not. But you know what's so interesting to me is that I'm not denying the racist element, but with the racist element, why did white men felt the need to take care of black women and children, even with the racial element? And why did they felt the need to provide birth control as an assistant, but just not just standing there and just not providing with for them at all and just letting them just basically die out?
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Well, what I think is not all white people were racist at the time. I think it was highlighted because we're in segregation, and black people were mistreated and treated like second class citizens. We cannot deny that happened. Um, but I think there were white people that had a heart and didn't want to see children go hungry, whether they're black or white. They just felt we had to take care of them. And if we were that racist, I mean, you could have really created a genocide. You could have said, okay, oh, that's your problem. You have kids and your man ran out. Oh, well, you're not getting nothing from us. Good luck. And what would these women do? If the government wanted to, they could say, hey, it's not our responsibility. Here you go. Would have kids starved? Would have women starved? Would have the population went down in that aspect? That would have been more of a genocidal thing created by black men than the birth control, in my opinion. Let's say the government said, no, we're only taking care of white people. We're segregated. Good luck. That would have been, but we didn't do that. Okay. And yeah, white people stood up and did something about that. And they took care of these women and their children. So, not everybody was evil and racist at that time. There were a lot that were, don't get me wrong, but I think white men were actually, some were evil and racist, and some were taking care of black women back then. Not even married to them because they couldn't do it. But I think some of them had a heart for black women. We know that there was a number of wealthy white men that had black women mistresses and even families with them, had two families. But I would say, you know what? Eliminate the segregation, just integrate and go for the best option. And however that turns out, so be it. The best get the best and should get the best. And if you want to be with a black woman, hey, you better be the best because you're going to get the best. In the collective. By stats, by numbers, you cannot tell me I'm wrong. Anyway.
Problem, Brent. So I'm going to move on to the next paragraph. Like the Vietnamese have decided to fight genocide, the South American poor are beginning to fight back, and the African poor will fight back too. Poor black women in the U.S. have to fight back out of our own experience of oppression. Having too many babies stop us from supporting our children, teaching them the truth, or stopping the brainwashing, as you say, and fighting black men who still want to use and exploit us. But we don't think you are going to understand us because you are a bunch of little middle class people and we are poor black women. The middle class never understands the poor because they are always need to use them as you want to use poor black women. Children to gain power for yourself. You'll run the black community with your kind of black power, you on top. That's what it says there. So what do you think about that paragraph that I just read, Britt?
Oh, wow. There's a number of dynamics going here. They're talking about the Vietnamese and poor countries rising up because of the poverty. And I think this is like a fantasy of a lot of pro-black men rising up black people and taking down the evil white man and being on top and, finally just taking everything over. And that's never going to happen. We're too much tied together anyway for that to go on. And I think what the women were saying is that you want us to fight for your black power, to uplift you. And I think that's what I picked out of this: uplift the black man. I think within the black community, from what I've seen, when it comes to race issues and white supremacy, sort of say, I think the whole idea is to lift up the black man. And once you do that, he will be powerful and everything will fall in place. I think that's where the idea comes from, because the king and queen concept, you know, and the pro-black movement, they talk about kings and queens and being the best of the best, you know, controlling the world and all this, all these fairy tale fantasy things. But I believe they think, in my opinion, that if you uplift the black men, and women all need to get on board and do this, that everything will fall in place. Actually, the opposite happens. Then the men come lazy and feel that they own black women and they have no right to go anywhere else, where they could venture out anywhere. But I think black women are seeing, okay, you want us to be pro-black and be on your side to uplift you, not the whole community. And I think that's a lot of truth in that. I think a lot of where it's going is uplifting black men instead of black people. I mean, look at when they talk about interracial marriages, they say, well, black women, white men are getting together to attack the black man. A lot of times they'll say the man, the black man, like as if we're just in cahoots trying to take down the black man because he's the greatest, most powerful man ever. And that, I think that's just what they want to believe. But then with that belief, you tear down your whole community, your family, and everything. White supremacy is not destroying the black family in today's world. It's the black man, in my opinion.
Okay, Brent, thank you so much for that. I'm going to move to the next part of the article here. This is also another part as well. Just give me 1 second here. So it says here, it is time to speak to the whole question of the position of poor black women in this society, and in the historical period of revolution and counter-revolution. We have the foregoing analysts of their own perspective, and it offers all of us some very concrete points. First, that the class hierarchy as seen from the poor black woman's position is one of white male in power, followed by the white female, then the black man, and lastly the black female. Historically, the myth in the black world is that there are only two free people in the United States, the white man and the black woman. The myth was established by the black man in the long period of his frustration, when he longed to be free to have the material and social advantage of his oppressor, the white man. On examination of the myth, this so-called freedom was based on the sexual progressives taken by the white man on the black female. It was fantasized by black men that she enjoyed it. What do you think about that, Brent?
Oh, wow. So the only two free people are white men and black women? That's interesting. Where would they come up with that concept? And you know what? That's kind of a narrative that's being pushed forward today. It's like, and people have said that black women are the right hand of white supremacy, which makes no damn sense. Black women are the most mistreated. Black men have it better than black women. I believe that, and always have. You know, I just, maybe in slave days, black women had, that's another topic. But other than that, I think black men have had more opportunities. They've been in power within their community. Black women have got the short end of the stick. I think black women are less likely to be free. That don't even make sense that they would be the most free along with the white man. No. White men, yes, because they were the power structure. They were the majority of the country. So that makes sense. But black women, putting them in there with them, yeah, no, that's not true at all. Um, Even today, I mean, black women are the most mistreated. And mainly in today's world, it's within their own community. Um, but yeah, I'm sorry. I kind of focused on that. And what was the other part of it? Was that, but I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought. Let's see. Try and
Brent, yeah, it's very little. So which other part? The historical, the myth in the black world is that there are only, yes, I already read that part. Give me 1 second.
yeah, yeah, and I kind of cling to that because I had something to say about that one.
Yes. So it says here in this report that historically the myth in the black world that there are only two free people in the United States, the white man and the black woman. The myth was established by the black man in the long period of his frustration when he longed to be free to have the material and the social advantage of his oppressor, the white man. On examination of the myth, this so-called freedom was based on the sexual prerogatives taken by the white man and the black female. It was fantasized by black men that she enjoyed it.
Oh wow! So I think there's some jealousy here, and I think they're thinking that black women. I think it goes along with that thing where white men and black women are white supremacy. Were they thinking that stuff back then? That what? And I think what they were thinking is white men are taking black women and having affairs, which that did happen, and black women are enjoying it and coming into power with the white man. Um, I think that's where they're going with that. And then the black man's desire to have more than the white man, to overpower the white man. I think that's a fantasy they live. And I think along with that, we could talk about black men with white women. And I think a lot of black men wanted to be with white women. It was a sexual thing and it was a fetishizing thing, but it was a power thing. Look, I got the white man's woman. I'm on top of the top. I got the most precious thing the white man has is his woman. And look, that kind of makes sense because look at how white men through centuries have treated their women. We really value our women. We put our women on such big pedestals. And I think black men seen that through time and thought, hey, if I get his woman, I got the thing he loves the most. And I think that was a power thing that they had. It was a fantasy type thing. Like, hey, I'm going to defeat the white man, get his woman, and have all he's got. And, and I think in a way they kind of try to live that fantasy. And they're angry at black women for even having anything to do with white men. And it's a psychological thing, I believe, that's going on to this day. Because a lot of black men get upset when they see black women with white men, even the ones that are married to white women. They don't like it either. It's weird, but I think it's some kind of fantasy that goes along with this. Because they looked at white men, they had the power, they could even be with black women. And look, white men have always been with black women from slavery to now. Even after slavery, I mean, they had affairs. They had families with black women, and black men have seen this, and they have a problem with that. And they look at women as belonging to them. And but in today's world, we could all date and marry who we want. We all have that freedom. And they're looking at it and they're seeing some black women divesting. They see black women going with other men, not just white men, but they really hate it when they go with white men. They cannot stand that. They don't like it with Hispanic or an Asian, but they really hate it with the white man. I think it's like an inferior complex they have. And I think when they're with white women, it makes them feel superior. And even if she's not the top of the top white woman, they still feel like they've gained something. Where white men, we are going for black women because we love black women. We see the beauty. And yeah, there are horrible, evil white men that will exploit black women and use them, yes. But usually when we go for black women, we want to be with black women. And I've never looked at it being with a black woman like I'm taking a dig at a black man. I didn't even think about a black man. I don't. Except when it's brought up. But that's a psychological thing, and it's interesting. And they blame black women for a lot of stuff. They blame black women for racism. They blame black women for being single mothers. They blame black women for being the least married. They blame black women for their own problems, along with white supremacy. But don't let that get you, because really they don't want to do without the white man or the black woman, to tell you the truth. They need us both. And I'm talking about the lazy ones. But anyway.
Thank you very much, Brent. So Brent, I know that we haven't finished this report, but I do want to get to the Monahan report. And if anybody is interested in this report, I'm going to leave that information towards the end of this live so you can have a copy of this report. Remember, this is Poor Black Woman, and I will leave that information towards the end of the live. Moving forward, we're going to go to the Monahan reports. And that is by Daniel Patrick Monahan. Unfortunately, he died in 2003, but we're going to begin with the report. This is the report right here. I just wanted to put it out there that for decades, this report was considered untrue. The case for national action, the Negro family. So this is how serious this was, but this was actually written in 1965. So this was actually 3 years before Poor Black Woman. And that also talks about 3 different areas where that activity was going on. But moving forward, I'm going to start the slide. And you guys can also obtain a copy of this at Patreon. It's a free copy of this. You can also get it online. I just wanted to put it out there. So I wanted to start off with this here. These statistics, just give me one moment here. Okay. So I'm starting here with the Monahan reports. And I wanted to start off with this paragraph right here. There are 2 points to be noted in this context. First, the emergency and the increase in visibility of a Negro middle class may begulge the nation into supposing that the circumstances of the remainder of the Negro community are equally prosper, if I'm saying that correctly, where else just the opposite is true at present, and it is likely to continue to. Second, the lumping of all Negroes together in one statistical measure very properly conceals the extent of the disorganization among the lower class group. If conditions are improving for I'm sorry, I can't really even see that well. For the other, the statistical averages might show no change. Further, the statistics on the Negro family and most other subjects treated in this paper refer only to specific point in time. They are a vertical measure of the situation at the given moment. So moving forward, I want to read this real quick. They do not measure the experience of individual over time. Thus, the average monthly unemployment rate for Negro males for 1964 is recorded at 9%. But during 1964, some 29% of Negro males were unemployed at one time or another. Similar, for example, if 36% of Negro children are living in broken home at any specific moment, it is likely that a far higher proportion of Negro children find themselves in that situation at one time or another in their lives. What do you think about what I just read? I know that was a mouthful, but what do you think about that?
Well, I mean, it just showing at the time, um, what children are born into and their situation. And, this is back in 1964. And looking at the numbers, the 9% unemployment to where 29% at one time. I mean, this is, and then the children are a product of what's going on at the time. 30% of children living in broken homes. That's a lot, right? And it says, and in today's world, it's much higher than 36%. But I think what he's talking about is something that's taken place, that's happening, that's going on a downhill slope, and it continues to this day. Wow, black men are costing $50 billion. Yeah,
Yes.
I've heard that number.
Yes. And a lot of it has to do with the unemployment rate. And this is 6% of the current country in 2023.
I think this is interesting, the unemployment rate here. And I think this is where black women have to come in and fill in the gap that are in families. And I think kind of like this is where that 50-50 comes from, in my opinion. But the children are put in this position with the low marriage rates and the unemployment, even at that time. So actually, it's creating a chain effect to where their children down the line will be a product of this also. And I haven't read their report. I've seen bits and pieces, so I'm not an expert on this. But I think what he's showing is what's going on. And it's actually come into play as the future goes on from that day and time. But $50 billion, that's a lot of money. And that report we read, the last one, who pays that $50 billion? That's a big price tag for single mothers, right? I blame the men for that. The men are costing us $50 billion. And let's say the men were marrying the women in their community and doing the right thing. Could we take that $50 billion and give it to black people for reparations? Because a lot of people are complaining about that. I get emails all the time. What am I going to do about it? Like as if I have power. But maybe throw that $50 billion to families that are married taking care of their children? I don't know. That's just a thought I had. If they're doing the right thing as men. But we're going to pay that $50 billion cost and the reparation thing also. But it's not going to fix things. The black man has to take care of his wife and children, or the women that he's with. And, but yeah.
No problem, Brent. Thank you for that. I'm going to move forward with speaking in regards to the marriage and how the marriage, because we do have our divorce rate currently of 2023. Black men and black women have the highest divorce rate, and the divorce rate is actually higher than the marriage rate. And I wanted to read this here because, like I said, this is the Monahan Report. This was written in 1965, and this has been over a 20-year to 30-year study. So I wanted to read this right here because I found this very interesting. Nearly a quarter of urban Negro marriages are dissolved. Nearly a quarter of Negro women living in cities who have ever married are divorced, separated, or living apart from their husbands. What do you think about that?
Wow, it's a quarter. That's a big number. I think back then that was disturbing, right? It shows that the family structure ain't that strong. A lot of black women are divorced or separated, and that's a quarter. Right now, I think it's 3/4. Am I wrong? I mean, 73% of black women aren't married. Back then, that was catastrophic, and it's almost tripled to today's world. I mean, what's it say about the family structure? And look, black women are the most loyal, and I believe they were the most loyal then and are today. It tells me that the men are the problem, and I know black men are going to come for me for this and say, "What do you mean we're the problem? It's white supremacy." But I think when it comes to the family, I think the men are the blame, and we see the numbers declining with marriage. We see a lot of divorces, and like you said, in today's world, the divorce rate in the black community is higher than the marriage rate. How does that happen? But they'll tell you it's black women's fault all day long, and they'll tell you it's white supremacy.
Thank you for that, Brent. I'm going to move to the next slide. Okay. I'm going to read here just a little bit, not too much. I'm going to start here. Nearly 1/4 of Negro births are now illegitimate. Both white and Negro illegitimacy rates have been increasing, although from dramatically different bases. The white rate was 2% in 1940. It was 3.7% in 1963. In that period, the Negro rate went from 16.8 to 23.6%. The number of illegitimate children per 1,000 live births increased by 11 among whites in the period of 1940 to 1963, but by 68 among non-whites. There are, of course, limits to the dependability of these statistics. There are almost certain a considerable number of Negro children who, although technically illegitimate, are in fact the offspring of stable unions. On the other hand, it may be assumed that many births that are in fact illegitimate are recorded otherwise. Probably the two opposite effects cancel each other out. What do you think about that?
Okay, well, what it's saying is the marriage rate's declining, right, between white people and black people, but the percentages with the black community is much higher, and so he's saying it's going downhill, but in the black community it's much worse. And we see that in today's world where the marriage rates are going down across the board. We all need to fix that. But the black community, it's much higher, much faster on a decline. yeah, that's even interesting back then. And and back then marriage was a thing that was very promoted with all communities, all cultures. Um, this being single and not getting married was very much looked down on. But we see the numbers shifting, and and it just gets worse. And I think what this report's really telling me is instead of being race loyal, we need to be love loyal. We need to traditional people need to be with traditional people, and those that don't want to get married, they go their own way. And but I mean, we're seeing a decline right then, and like I said, it and I know back then they're saying there's no way this could get much worse. There's no way. This is horrible. But yet it's gotten worse, and it continues to get worse. And I think this report actually promotes divestment, in my opinion.
Yes, it definitely does. This was written in 1965, and then Loving versus Virginia was passed in 1967. What do you think about that? And what do you believe Black women should have done in that time?
I think in that time, I think Black women should have divested at that time. They should have went and seeked out white men that were willing to marry them. And I think white men should have seeked out Black women because I think that would have slowed down the out of birth rate. And look, call me crazy. I think it would have made both sides better, both Black and white, when it comes to marriage and traditional families. We're seeing now, when we're getting the stats we get in, that Black women, white men are having the most successful marriages. I think they would have had the most successful marriages back in the day. Also, even after segregation and all that's went on, I think Black women, best bet would have went to communities, diverse communities where there were both Black and white people, and sought out white men, and white men seek out Black women. People are going to call me crazy for this and think I'm off, but I think I'm most definitely right. I think it would have been a better thing. And I think Black men would be forced to compete and not be held up as the prize in the community. I do believe that. But when you let men slide and not held accountable, they're going to give you the worst. They're going to go the path of least resistance. And that means they're going to procreate with you, date you, marry you, have sex with you, and, well, not marry you. They'll throw that part out and go to the next woman because you allow that as women. And I know some women are duped and misled and, deceived. I get it. But the women that know it's wrong, they need to stop it. And ladies, I think Black women should have put Black women first back in the day, back in the 60s. After Loving Virginia passed, they should have came in droves and opened up their options. I think we would be in a better world today if they did. But Black women are loyal. They love their family. They love their men. And they still do and always will. But the Black women that want the best man for the job, most likely is going to have to open up her options. And to have options, the way the numbers are, she's just going to have to open up her options to have options. It bothers me so much that Black women are so attacked for dating and marrying out, that they're so shamed for it. And at this point, they have no choice. But anyway.
Thank you so much for your thesis, Brent. I'm going to move forward with this paragraph here. Almost 1/4 of Negro families are headed by females. As a direct result of this high rate of divorce, separation, and desertion, a very large percent of Negro families are headed by females. While the percentage of such families among white has been dropping since 1940, it has been rising amongst Negroes. The percent of non-white families headed by a female is more than double the percentage for whites. Fatherless non-white families increased by six between 1950 and 1960s, but held constant for white families. It has been estimated that only a minority of Negro children reach the age of 18 having lived all their lives with both their parents. What do you think about that, Brent?
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. Back then it was a fourth, right? Disturbing number at the time that were headed, the household was headed by women, black women. Okay. A quarter of the population. Okay. And people look at the past and say, well, black families were strong and married and this and that. And yeah, they had more marriages, but we see the decline happening back then. And to be fair, there's a decline with white people, but it's so small. But with the black community, it's escalating. And children between the age of 18 have been in a single family home within their lives. I mean, that's disturbing. And one quarter, that's a lot. That's like 25% households are led by women. What are households led by black women today? What is the percentage? I say it's in the 70s. I mean, it almost tripled from then to today's world. And why is this happening? Why did this? And the Monahan Report, he sees this taking place. And you know what? We can look in our own world and see this taking place. We can pull up stats now by our cell phone, by our computers. We get access to data like no other. And you know what? The past was a preview of the future, which is happening right now. And I don't think it's going to get any better. I think it's going to get worse. I think the only way to make it better is for people to open up their options. And maybe, I don't know, maybe it's going this way. Maybe it's God's plan to get us together that this stuff's happening. I don't know. But men have to take responsibility to fix this. They can't blame the women and hope things get better. It just won't happen. And, you know, and I think a lot of it, I blame black men, but there is some blame on black women for, you know, putting black men on that pedestal, because they do. Black women put black men on a pedestal like white men put white women on a pedestal. But, you know, and I think that's why the it's going more downhill for the black community, because the women are leading instead of the men. Where white community, yeah, it's having problems, but the men are still in charge, you know, for the most part. But yeah, he sees it getting bad back then. I don't think he would have imagined it would be black women 73% not married. I don't think he would have believed that back in the day when they did this report. If you told him, well, yeah, it's going to be 73, he'd say you're full of crap. It's not going to get that bad. We're at the worst right now. But anyway, that's my opinion on that.
Thank you so much, Brent. Your opinion is very needed. I wanted to show this graph here. This is also legitimacy racial rates per 1,000 non-white birth by children by city, and this is from 1950 to 1962, and it shows you basically, and this is, like I said, these are children born out of wedlock in legitimacy. That's the term that they used in those times. Remember, this is the Monahan Report, and this is from 1965. Brent, by looking at this chart, what do you think about this?
It shows that there's more out of birth rates in certain areas, certain cities. And I mean, I'd have to dig in and figure out why that is. It looks like what Memphis is leading the way. I think that's Memphis, Tennessee, with the most illegitimate births. And I mean, that's interesting, but it shows that across the country it's happening in, you know, disturbing numbers. And this is out of 1,000. Memphis exceeds 300 out of 1,000, about 350. Wow, that's getting close to almost half. Yeah, and Seattle's the best, but there's still like 100 and some out of 1,000. So that's over 10% right there, and they're doing the best. So it just shows that it's a problem across the United States. Some places it's better than others, of course, and maybe it's because people have more resources in certain states. Maybe, I don't know, maybe they have better values. I don't know, but that is interesting. But this is 1950 and 1962. That was way back. So what do you think it would be today? I think it'd be much higher. I don't know if I even want to know, to tell you the truth.
Okay, yes. So this is what I'm just going to tell a little bit of background from my research from Dr. Moynihan. He was working for the Department of Labor. He was also a U.S. Senator as well. And he called this for national attention. And he got a lot of scrutiny from actual white people in that time for writing this article because they felt like it was none of his business. Looking at this today, do you believe this is white men's problem?
Yes, very much so. This is everybody's problem. The out of birth rate, look, we live in the same country, and honestly, we're responsible for each other, whether you're black or white. Due to the out of birth rate, we should be concerned because the more it happens, the more taxes you're going to pay, the more it's going to affect your community when it comes to crime and instability of people, because people that have less resources, that are in poverty, are more desperate. Okay. And that is what it is. But yeah, it's all of our problem. I mean, it affects us in society. I think we all should be disturbed, whether it's black or white people, that the marriage rates are going down, that the out of birth rate's going up. In my opinion, it's very much his business to take the time to do this, to show people, look, this is what's happening. And it would behoove people to look at these stats, to look at what's going on, because this can affect your life. Even though this was written in the 50s and 60s, we've seen a downhill spiral. It's coming to you if you don't do the right thing, if you're not prepared and wanting the best man for the job. Yes, it is our responsibility, and it is our business. Hey, I know they told him it was none of his business because they don't want him talking. They don't want him put in a negative light within the black community. Okay. But sometimes we have to. We can't pretend like it's all rainbows and unicorns over there when we know it's not. Okay. I mean, we all have our problems, but look, we need to know the truth. You know, just like everything that's gone on in our history, the slavery, the Jim Crow, all that crap, we need to know about it. We can't hide it and pretend it didn't happen. Well, the same thing in real time going on with the marriage rates in the communities, how black women are treated, what's going on. Yes, it is all our business, and we need to put information out because people need to see it. Yes, in the past to real time. The past, it affects the future. It really does. What you do and your time today affects your children, grandchildren, and our nation. Those who are having kids illegitimately and not taking care of the mothers, they're affecting all of us. They're hurting all of us, even though we're not connected to their family. So yes, it is our business. Okay? If you're a citizen of the country, what people are doing in every community is your business because it affects you. It's not like it's a separate country. When we say black and white community, it means that it's just black and white people. We all live together in different economic situations. So yes, he was right to do this report. He should speak up, and damn it, we all need to speak up and tell the truth. Yes, people aren't going to like it. Yes, we're not going to be popular when we tell the truth. Okay? But it has to be done. You're better off being hated, telling the truth, than being loved, telling a lie. So that's my opinion on that. Yes, he needed to do this. Yes, it's his business. Yes, it's all of our business. And protecting black women is all of our business. So we need to know the stats. And you know what? We need to get into this. And yes, opening up our options, it is our business. And look, if we're going to become better, we need to do better, all of us. And we need to hold the ones accountable that are doing wrong. If you're a deadbeat dad creating single mothers, you're the problem. Anyway, I'm sorry.
It's okay, Brent. Thank you so much. You're passionate, and that is what I'm all about here at Pro White Male Leadership, is proactive white male leadership for Black women. Moving forward, I wanted to look at this chart as well. Almost 1/4 of non-white families, we read that already, are headed by a woman. Just a brief, something very brief, because we already discussed this yet. Do you see a difference between what Dr. Monahan wrote back in 1965 until now?
Let me see. All families. This is husband held. Okay, where's
almost 1/4 of non-white families are headed by a woman.
Almost 1/4. Okay, now I'm just trying to understand this chart. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to see what.
Yeah, it's a little difficult because it's from the 1960s, so their charts were not as like today.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay, I'm seeing it. Okay. Non-white or white is 88% in 1960, 74% non-white. So is he including Hispanic, Asian, and others? Or
this report is just a comparison on white and Black women.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we see that non-whites, they have a worse or more of a woman-led family. Less.
Yeah, the term non-whites was commonly used in that time.
As Black.
But all these statistics are about the Black family, and it's comparing Black families to white families.
Yeah. So it don't look like the stats are too much apart, really. It looks like the marriage, the white are doing a little bit better, but the Black are pretty close. But in today's world, it's right now the marriage rate is 52% for white people and 30% for Black people. So we've all taken a dive when I look at this chart. But the Black community's taken the biggest dive, and Black women are the least to be married. But we can see it going downhill. But it wasn't, I mean, from this chart, I mean, if I'm reading it right, but it seems like Black people are dropping more, a little bit more at a slower rate, but then after that, it like nosedives. Um, but I'm sorry, I'm just trying to look at this chart, but how it's written and stuff.
Yeah.
Husband household 88% of white, 74% non-white. Okay, that's pretty close. And then uh, that's 1960. 1950, it was much more close. But you see the black community dipping faster than the white community. But this report does show that the white community is going downhill also. So it's not just the black community. The black community is doing much higher rate. And I would say when it comes to marriages and stuff, women, you got to look at this. Yeah, there are white men doing the wrong thing also, along with black men, with creating single mothers. But you got to look at who does it much more. It's much higher in the black community. But yeah, child, and this is another chart.
Yes, I'm gonna read this just a little bit. I'm
Okay.
sorry. You could have finished your statement, Brent. I just changed the slide. So you can go ahead and
Yeah,
finish your statement. I'm sorry about that.
yeah, I'm sorry. I'm trying to, make sense of what I see. But what I see is in the 1950s, marriage was pretty much similar. And I think there were times where the black community had more marriages than the white community. But it started taking a nosedive um, towards the 50s and 60s. And, we see it today, and there's a big, huge gap. Back then, there was a small gap, but it grew wider and wider as time went on. But, it's interesting to look at these old reports. But anyway, I'll go ahead.
No problem, Britt. Yeah, so this is what was written in the 1960s. So some of it is a little hard. The way they did their graphs back then was a little bit different. So it can be a little bit hard to read from what we're used to seeing from the graphs that we've learned how to read in school. So I'm sorry about that. But moving forward, I'm going to read this right here. The breakdown of the Negro family has led to a startling increase in welfare dependency. The majority of Negro children receive public assistance under the AFDC program at one point or another in their childhood. At present, 14% of Negro children are receiving AFDC assistance as against 2% of white children. 8% of white children receive assistance at some time as against 56% of non-whites, according to the exploitation-based Hugh data. That's what they called it at that time. What do you think about that?
The percentage of them getting support?
Yes. I don't know if you see that.
Yeah, it was 8% to 56. That's drastic.
Yes.
I think that could kind of be skewed too with income based, because black families did make less, so maybe that's why they got more support. And then the father out of the home rate was a bit higher, so that would lead to a bigger percentage.
Yeah, well, this report is the children on AFDC with fathers absent compared with all children on AFDC.
Oh, okay. So that's these are all absentee kids, and white is 8% and black 56%. That's interesting. I think there's a wealth gap there back in the day. I think I believe this too. I think within the white community, and I'm just telling you what I think, okay? I don't have data on this, but I think within the white community, when we have single mothers within, we don't really like it, but I think we give more support than the black community. And maybe it's because we have more resources to do so, but I think maybe that's why that percentage is lower. The wealth gap and the family support is better, I believe. So it probably takes, when you have people helping out in your family, you seem to need less resources when you're on your own as a single mother. You need as much help as you can get. So I think that's a reflection of that, in my opinion.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that so much. I'm going to go to the next slide, Brent.
Okay.
So here, this is a unemployment rate. So I'm going to read this here. This is cases open under AFDC compared with unemployed rate for non-white males. And it shows you the unemployment rate between Black men and white men. And that's also an issue today, being that Black men only make up 6%. Currently, of 2023, Black men make up only 6% of the United States, but they have the highest unemployment rate in the country. But going by this chart from 1965, what does that tell you here?
Okay, this is the Okay, what is members of the AFDC is?
Back then that's what they called welfare and government assistance.
Okay. The unemployment rate? I just don't see how the ones, so they're still employed, but they're given government assistance. Is that correct?
Non-white male unemployment rate, that's the Black one, and then the number of FDC cases open.
So it's fluctuating, but it's kind of going up here. I'm sorry, I don't know how to read this graph.
I'm a little confused. Well, but I think, like I said, it's from the 1960s, but it's showing non-white males unemployment rate. And because of that, it's showing the number of welfare cases that had to be opened because of the unemployment rate.
Okay. Yeah, I know it's grown through the years, but I'm sorry, I don't even know how to read this graph. I'm sorry.
No,
I don't want to give a false opinion.
Absolutely not.
But yeah, I'm sorry, but I know the welfare rate has increased through the years, and the population is getting bigger. And with the Black community having the most single mothers, it's grown substantially within the Black community. But I wish I could read that graph and give my opinion. I just can't. I'm just like, I don't even understand what it's saying.
No problem, Brent. Don't worry about it. I don't want you to give anything false as well. The next thing we're going to talk about is urbanization. I hope I said that correctly, but that is a term that they used in 1960s. Country life and city life are profoundly different. The gradual shift of America social from a rural to an urban basis over the past century and a half has caused abandonment strains, many which are still much in evidence. When this shift occurs suddenly, drastically, in 1 or 2 generations, the effect is immensely disruptive of traditional social patterns. It was this transition, that produced the wild Irish slums of the 19th century Northeast: drunkenness, crime, corruption, discrimination, family disorganization, juvenile delinquency were the routine of the era. In our own time, the same sudden transition has produced the Negro slum, different from but hardly better than its predecessors, and fundamentally the result of the same process. Negroes are now more urbanized than whites. What does that tell you there?
It tells me from what I hear from that is the poverty rate within the Black community is staying low, and they're more urbanized, more in the inner city, where the white population has integrated more so towards, like you would say, suburban life, more of going for better neighborhoods, newer neighborhoods, uh, better schools. Because once you make more money, once you become more successful, of course you're going to live successful for the most part. You move to a better neighborhood, you move to where there's better schools, a better environment, you feel more safe. Um, and most people do this, whether you're black or white, you're going to move to the best neighborhood. It just makes sense, right? Unless you're my father and his home is where he bought it and he just stayed there. But other than that, you're going go you're going to move up with your success. And it tells me that, and it makes sense that black people are more urbanized than white people of the time. And, the Irish and Italians, they were looked at as second class citizens too. And they've moved up. And people say, well, they've been pulled up to whiteness, okay, which they're white people, but they've become more success through time. And with white people, we've integrated. We don't call each other Irish and Italians, and we do, but we're still white people. It's like we've just become white people.
In those times, there was a divide between the Irish and the Italians.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that was a big thing. So, yes. And they've had also their own racial slurs. They had their own racial slurs that they would call them as well. So, in that time, that was a divide, unfortunately.
Yeah, it was. It was. And it was wrong there, too. And I think black people need to come in like the Irish and the Italians did and just become part of society, in my opinion, and become one nation. I think, but that's my opinion. I know some people don't agree with that, but it just shows that they've moved up more than the black community. And I think it starts with the men, okay? The women will, if the men in the community do well, the women will do well. And, black women aren't doing well economically in many cases because of the men. Now, black women are adapting and overcoming and actually becoming the most successful group of women, but it's out of survival and necessity, and that's what really makes black women so valuable. And these pro-black groups that want to keep the race loyal thing going, it's backfiring. When you blame the women, now they're rising up, now they're doing better, and guess what? They're eventually going to go with men that are on their same education and economic level. But this is interesting, but it makes sense. If you have the most out of birth rate, you're going to be the least successful. And this is what it's showing us. You look at the Hispanic rate, right? You're going to see Hispanics become more successful as they move on. They have been. They're family orientated for the most part. But you have to be to pull yourself up. It starts with the family. It starts with the wife and the husband and the children. It's basic. If you don't have that, your community, your nation's going to fall. I'm sorry. It is what it is. I don't care what your skin tone is and how much money you got. You could be a millionaire tomorrow, but if you don't have those values and you don't do it the right way, you will lose everything. And we're seeing that's what's happening, and I think it's a part of lifting up the men so much that they eventually don't have to work because they're the best and it's not their fault. So anyway.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Brent. Moving forward, I wanted to talk about this as well. I'm sorry about that. I had a little bit of background noise. This article says here 1/3 of non-white children live in broken homes. What do you think about that?
1/3. Wow. That's pretty high. And how do they recognize broken homes? Is that a home that has just a single mother, or is it a broken home where the father's not doing what he's supposed to? They're married, but the mom's carrying everything.
At the time, they considered it, yes, absent father and them applying
Okay.
for welfare. That's what they were
Okay.
counting.
Okay. So 1/3. So it's increasing from 1/4. Um, yeah, in the United States. Wow, that's crazy. United States urban, rural, non-farm, rural. It seems like the urban is worse, and the rural and the rural farm is actually better. Has the least amount of broken homes. Is it? I think that's how I'm reading that graph, and that makes sense because usually rural communities do better than urban. They usually are more successful. Um, and not to say you can't be living in the city and be successful. I think generally when it comes to family, it does better in the rural, where you might be in the city making money and be very successful. I think rural has it's better off with the family structure. And well, urban there's more crime too, more poverty, so that makes sense. But 1/3, that's pretty high. I mean 1/4 is high, but it's climbing because if they consider that non-married with broken homes, the early chart was 1/4. Now it's 1/3. I see a pattern going with this report, how it's gradually getting worse. But I mean, that's horrible. 1/3, I think. Well, I think one family that has a broken home is horrible, but a third, that's pretty high. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Brent. I do appreciate that. We're going to move on to the next chart here. I'm going to read this just a little bit, and then you'll tell me your opinion on that. The 1930 census taken in the spring before the Depression was in full swing shown Negro unemployment at 6.1% as against 6.6% for whites. But taking out the South reverse, if I'm saying that correct, South reverse the relationship white 7.4%, non-whites 11.5%. By 1940, the two to white Negro unemployment relationship that persists to this day had clearly emerged, taking out the South again. Whites were 14.8% and non-whites were 29.7%.
Wow. So 1940, it skyrocketed with the non-white population. It almost doubled the white population. That's interesting. 1940, what was going on? I would have to study my history. Maybe because we're coming out of the Great Depression at that time, because it seems considerably higher than the 30s, 50s, and 60s. So maybe that's why I mean across the board, but it seems like the black population almost doubled the white. That's interesting. Um, but we see them both going down. Um, the unemployment rate's going down. 1950, uh, looks like it's double. The unemployment is double compared to the white community in 1950 and pretty much 1960s, but it seems the 60s went down. And that's probably the time on what was going on with the economy, because we have our economy right, goes up and down all the time. So different eras we do better than others, depending on what's going on. And somebody said the war, maybe it's wartime too. I don't know, had an impact. But I think the 1940s, I think that was part of the coming out of the Great Depression and the country getting it back together. But that's interesting. And some would say, well, yeah, that's white supremacy holding black men back from getting a job. And maybe some of that's figured in there. I don't know. But that's interesting. But yeah. But in today's world, I think it's much worse. And I don't think there's the racism issue like it was back then. I don't know. I'd have to really look into that and see what's causing it. But yeah, you see it getting better, but it looks like the black community got worse, much worse from the 30s to 60s, looking at the graph. So something's going on there. But that just shows us what's going on through time. And it don't seem like it's getting any better. It seems like it's getting worse. And the gap between white community and black communities growing, and you would think it would be getting closer together now that we got away from Jim Crow and all the segregation and stuff. Anyway.
Thank you so much for that, Brent. We're gonna go to one more slide here, and then we're gonna go to our next article, which is more of a updated article. But moving forward, I'm going to read this comparison. Yes, some of the charts might be difficult to read, unfortunately, because these charts are created in 1960s. So I will try to explain it as much as I can. And if you don't understand it, Brent, it's completely fine. I will go to the next slide. So it says here, unemployment rate for non-white men compared with percent of non-white women compared from husbands.
Okay. No, I don't know what they're even saying there.
Okay, that's fine. So the next chart here, among non-white men working during the year, 1/4 or more experience unemployment. So this is a chart among non-white men working during the year, 1/4 or more experience unemployment.
Okay. All right, which are the, okay. Now, what are in this graph? I'm trying to figure out what is it, unemployment, and then the black unemployment for 15 weeks or more. Okay, so that's okay. We're kind of getting the technical aspect because they're going with 15 weeks to during the year.
Yeah, just remember that this is how statistics were done in the 1960s.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I could see a decline, but to go into the real technical numbers, statistics really broken down because they're doing it within weeks in a year. 15 weeks. So I'm just trying to read this graph.
Saying here is unemployment 15 weeks or more. That means that unemployment during the year and then unemployed 15 weeks or more. So it's just measuring and it's talking about the percentage. So yes, the chart is a little difficult to read, like I said, because this is technical analysis from the 1960s, so it wasn't as advanced as today. So what the chart is saying is that this study is between this is for non-white men, and this is talking about black men, and is saying that their rate, they have been unemployed during the year, and usually they were unemployed for at least 15 weeks or more. So the black bars are meaning that they were unemployed for 15 weeks or more, and the unemployment during the year is the white ones.
Okay, I'm understanding it now. Okay, what they're saying is the lighter graph is saying they were unemployed during the year. The black is 15 weeks or more. So it's comparing how much longer they were on unemployment as opposed to just being unemployment that year, because some were probably on unemployment for a few weeks. Some might have been 2 weeks, and some might have been 15 weeks or longer. And that's what the black graph is showing, the ones that have been 15 weeks or more. It's giving you a picture of the ones that were on unemployment longer than the others. I get it now. I was just like, okay, what's this mean? I was like, is this the white and non-white comparison? But no, that's
This is
a
just talking
comparison
about
with the non-white.
this
Yeah.
is just talking
Okay.
about black men.
I'm sorry, I was trying to compare it to both, and I'm like, okay, where's the white men portion to the non-white? And I was just like, that's what confused me, but I get it now. Okay, so for 15 weeks or more is the black graph, and it just shows that, and it's almost, when you look at it, it's like almost half were 15 weeks or more. So that tells you that there's a lot of people on it beyond 15 weeks. Yeah.
Yep. And I'm going to go down here as well. Percentage of non-white legitimate births in 1963 in the District of Columbia census tracts as related to non-whites in 1960 employment rate of census tract. So this is basically saying the birth rate as well as the unemployment rate. So it's talking about how black men are not working but producing children. What do you think about that?
That's disturbing. And that's happening today, where they're producing more children and the most unemployed. It's crazy, but I see it in today's world, where you see people that have more wealth that are having less children, and you see people in poverty having more children, and it's skyrocketing in the black community. The black women are the most that be single mothers. They have the biggest out of birth rate. Now, to hear some of these beta kings explain it, they'll say, well, and I heard some crazy thing like, well, only 20% of black men are impregnating 80% of black women, or something stupid. That would be very busy, guys, But what's disturbing is the biggest out of birth rate and the least likely to have a job. And how do you fix that? Especially when we got a system that takes care of that. Single mothers do get assistance. They do get Section 8 housing, food stamps, and all that stuff. And I'm not saying they shouldn't have that, because you got to take care of children. I'm not for just letting children starve. It's not the children's fault that their parents procreated the wrong way, that didn't do it within marriage. It's not their fault. But this is disturbing. You would think that if you're the most unemployed, you would be having the least amount of children. Wouldn't that make sense? I mean, but we're seeing the opposite. And that's creating a problem. And that's really what's destroying the community, is the out of birth rate, the going away from the family, the husband and wife. And yeah, but I mean, we see that happening more and more today, and it's sad, it's disturbing. And how do you expect your children to compete when you put them in that position, when you put them in that situation? Just saying. But you teach them how to blame society and other things, and black women, white supremacy. Not saying white supremacy don't exist, it does. But to use it for a security blanket, you're actually making it more powerful. Just saying. But anyway, that's my opinion on that.
Thank you for your opinion. Your opinion is needed, Brent. I wanted to move to something that I thought that was also interested. This is more up to date. because I don't know if this is something that I just see, but I really wanted your opinion. Um, this article here is from Britain, and it was written in 1999. I'm going to just move up. And it says here, excuse me for 1 second. Because I'm starting to notice a pattern. I'm not sure if there's a pattern that you're noticing as well, by looking at these documents. But I really, like I said, I really wanted your opinion on all this data that I am presenting today. But moving forward, I wanted to read this really quick because I found this very interesting. White mothers and mixed percentage children and child welfare. It is now well documented that majority of mixed percentage children who enter the public care system in Britain have a white biological mother and a black African Caribbean father. This paper explores some of the underlying factors which increase the vulnerability of mixed percentage children. The situation of white single mothers is examined in the context of race, class, gender, and location in British society. Findings from two recent research studies provide a profile of white single mothers and their children in in receipt of social work, help, and assistance. Areas for further discussions are raised within the framework. What do you think about that?
It tells me that black men with white women, that their birth rate is actually higher than it is with black men with black women. And it's showing a pattern that's taking place. And we're seeing when black men get with white women, the situation don't get better when it comes to out of birth rate, when it comes to single mothers. And I think I seen one chart you had where it showed that white women actually were more single mothers with black men than black women. And I've heard that talked about. I've seen statistics on that, and that's crazy. But something's going on. A lot of white women are on welfare and programs that the father is white, I mean black. So I mean that just shows the character of men. I mean, if their family structure and marriage rates ain't good with black women, and they go with other women and it gets even worse, what's that really say? Can you really blame black women at that point when you date and marry out and it gets worse? That tells me that it's not the women, it's you. It tells me that black women have more character. And if you really dig down, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to get off track here, but if you dig down with marriage rates with black women, men of different races are better off with black women when it comes to marriage. They're more successful, even within their own group. Okay, if you really dig down deep, you'll find that, not just with white men. So it tells me there's a character issue. And who's really at fault? And I think, it's, I don't know if it's the culture or the men just feel like, hey, I'm just here to procreate and with whoever. It's disturbing. And I know that sounds horrible for me to say that, but, it's happening. The single mother rate is higher percentage-wise when black men get with white women than it is with black women. Tell me something ain't going on here.
Absolutely, Brent. Absolutely. And there's more to definitely come. This is also another article as well. This is the information for the article. I'm not really sure where this takes place, but it's either the United Kingdom, or the United States, or this is also, or it could be also another white male run country. And what this article basically says is young single white mothers with Black children in therapy. This article describes the treatment of 16 single white women aged 17 to 23 years with Black mixed percentage children within an integrative I'm sorry, I can't say that, but in a cognitive behavior therapy model. Issues of loss, isolation, and familiar rejection and discussed. The mother's ability to cope with their children, ethnic identities in the context of absent fathers are examined, as are the mother-child relationship. Suggestions are made for enabling therapy. What do you think about this article?
Oh wow! So it's saying out of 16 single white women with white mothers are having problems and therapy, issues of loss, isolation. It seems like they're going through mental health issues. Um, they've done studies when they've compared mixed marriages with Black women, white men, and white women, Black men, and they found out that there's more success with Black women, white men in marriages, and also their children tend to do better statistically. Um, and that is truth. I mean, and look, there's always an exception, but for the most part, biracial children do better when the mother's Black and the father's white than the white mother and Black father. And there again, I would say it's a character issue within the men. And these articles are showing that they're having problems. And when the relationship's not good or the marriage, that can create problems, and it will trickle down to your children. When it's more stable, your kids will be more secure, more protected, more confident, more successful. It is what it is. But we're seeing white women having problems with Black women or with Black men, like Black women are having it with Black men. And like I said, it's not all, but there's something going on here. And we can look at the stats and see, hey, all this proves is that it's the men's fault. It's not Black women's. I know they'll say it's the Black woman's fault and white supremacy, but really it's the leader of the family, the community, the man. And with the white community, with their marriages going down, it's the man's fault too. And, I was looking in the comments, and that David H. guy or whatever, he's saying something about not knowing history and stuff. Well, the part of history we're covering is marriage. The Monahan Report, when it comes to marriage, unemployment, stuff like that. Now, I know there's racial history and some horrible things that took place. We're not covering that right now, David H. But, I mean, it is what it is. You can read the data. And for women to have the best option, they need to go with the man that's going to give them more. And I'm not talking just money. I'm not just talking wealth and house. I'm talking love. I'm talking loyalty. I'm talking about being with that woman your whole life with only that woman. Where are Black women going to get this? Black women, you got to ask yourself this. I could tell you all day what you should do or where to go, but it's up to you. And the vetting process is very important at this time. Okay? And, but anyway, but this study, look, it's happening everywhere. It ain't just in Great Britain or whatever. It's in America and it's in other countries. Anyway.
No problem, Brent. Thank you so much for that. This article here is actually this is between 2018 and 2019, and this discuss this is a statistics with Caucasian, Asian, and Hispanic women with Black fathers. And it says here, at the time of your child's birth, were you and the father married? Caucasian women said no at a 97%. Asian women said no at an 85%, and Hispanic women said no at a 95%. And then in the next table, too, did you and the father of your child eventually get married? Caucasian women, 80% said no. Asian women, 92% no, said no. And Hispanic women, 99% of them said no. As shown in Table 1, the study started by asking the participant if their children were born in or out of wedlock. 92% of the respondents were not married when they had their children, leaving 8% of the women from the group who did have their children in wedlock. Asian women occupied the lowest percentage of children out of wedlock with African American fathers, even though the numbers were still high. Caucasian women, on the other hand, had the highest percentage of children out of wedlock with African American fathers. That number was 97%. Brent, what is your opinion on that?
My opinion is it's totally disgusting. If you're going to have a child with a woman, you need to be there. You need to marry her. Look. And this goes along with what I was saying, that when Black men get with white women, it gets worse. And this shows it. 97% of the fathers weren't there at childbirth. Wow, it shows how they value Becky, right? Wow. And Asian women, it's the lowest, 85. They still don't care about them either, or Hispanic at 95. Close behind. Maria's close behind Becky. Becky's getting the biggest shaft when it comes to Black men. And I don't know if I should have said that. I mean, they're getting the worst case scenario, right? And then this other table, did you and the father ever get married? Okay. I guess they come back and marry Becky, but 80% of Caucasian women said no, 92% of Asians said no, 99% of Hispanics said no. So that is totally disgusting. So you only value these women to sleep with, but you don't value them to even be a part of the child's life that you created together? Wow. That you know what? That's more disturbing than I ever thought it would be. So that tells you, wow. I know I tell women, Black women, to open up their options, but maybe other women shouldn't with Black men. I don't know. According to this data, wow.
But, okay, Brent, we're going to move on to the next slide.
Okay.
So this chart here says, have you ever had to use government assistance to supplement your income? Caucasian women, 97% said yes. Asian women, 51% said yes. Hispanic women, 98% said yes. Is the father active in the child's life? Caucasian women, 97% said no. Asian women, 88% said no. And Hispanic women, 85% said no. Does your child have a good relationship with their father? Caucasian women said 94% said no. Asian women said 89%. Hispanic women, 98% said no. In the table 8, the participants were asked if the father of their child was active in the child's life. 90% of the participants said that the father of the child was not active in the child's life, whereas 10% of the population said that the father was in fact active in the child's life. Most of the participants that had their child out of wedlock had never married the father, expressed that at the beginning of the child's life there were many futile promises by the father to see the child, but at the time went on a lack of ability to connect with their child, led the father to completely stop communication. As displayed in Table 9, when asked if the participant thought their child had a good relationship with their father, an overwhelming amount of 94% said that they did not feel the father of their child had a good relationship with the child, leaving 6% who did feel the relationship between the father and the child was good. Though interviews conducted, the vast majority felt as if the father and the child barely had enough time together. What do you think about that, Brent?
Wow. That just shows that the father just ain't a part of the child's life. I mean, the numbers are horrible. I mean, I'm just looking at all these numbers. The government assistance part, it looks like Asians are using the government assistance less, and maybe there's more wealth there within the family. So the family's helping out, where white and Hispanic are using 97, 98%. So I think maybe the Asians have more of a better family support system, according to that chart there. Is the father in the child's life? Yeah, that's disturbing too. 3% of white women say, 12 of Asian, 15 Hispanic. So most of the fathers just don't even want to be part of the child's life, period. So they were just basically what this chart says is they were pump and dumping. Yeah, I mean, that's disturbing. I mean, that they're okay with sleeping with these women, but taking care of the child, being a part of the child's life, they're not okay with that. And that's disturbing. You know, even if you have a child out of wedlock, you would think maybe these men want to be a part of the child's life, at least let them know who you are. And that shows they're not even doing that. So to me, that's very disturbing.
Thank you so much for your opinion, Brent, and thank you so much for being here. I do appreciate you being here alive. I think that the opinion of white men being that every group of women would have to go to you if they need some type of aid. Asking you, what should Black women do at this point with the information we received today on this live?
What they should do with this information is divest immediately and never look back. And stay away from like idiots like David H. Yeah, I don't know how to read graphs in the 60s, but I do know how to read percentages, and I do know who does better with Black women. And David H., you are not one of them. Anyway, I just want to throw that at that clown. But I mean, look at the stats, ladies. Who are you better with? You can look at the percentages, and there's a lot of studies. You could look at Pew Research. It does a lot of these studies, interracial marriages, and out of birth rates. You could look at that. Who is the biggest single mothers, and who are the men least likely to get married? Yeah, look at that. And look, I'm going to be honest, okay? And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Women, according to this data, from what we went into, and this is the first time ever I've seen the Monahan Report. And yeah, I had a little problem understanding some of the graphs. I get it. But from what I did pick out of it, it just verifies other studies I've seen. And it validates that Black women are not at fault at this. It's the men. And when they go outside their race, the same problems happen. Think about it. When they tell you Becky, Maria, and Mei Ling are their preference, and they have the same problems they had with you, with marriage, out of birth rates, being in the child's life, well, what should you do? Maybe you'll find that unicorn within the community, but looking at data, looking at research that people have done, you're better off opening up your options, divesting. Okay? And that's my opinion. You can agree with it or not, but for Black women's sake, you need to open up your options. And my advice is divest. Heal first, but divest. Anyway, that's my opinion.
So my next question, Brent, is what is white men's positioning with this issue that we're having right now? How could, I mean, what can white men do right now in this situation? Um, I mean, do you feel that there needs to be some type of program for Black men in relates to manhood and fatherhood? Um, I mean, what do you do with an unproductive group of men? That's really the question.
Well, in order to do a program to get them right, they'd have to be willing to do that program. That would be in the perfect world. Hey, brother, we're going to help you out and teach you how to do things right. And he'd be willing. Oh yeah, thanks for the help. Now we can both be great men, great fathers, and live together in perfect harmony. But unfortunately, that ain't going to happen. I would say, a man has to change to become a good father or a good husband. And I think the problem is the victimhood. I think Black men need to get out of that victimization and take responsibility. Yeah, I know Black people were treated bad, and there's been god-awful, evil things that have happened to Black people. Look, and my heart breaks to even look at history. But the thing of it is they need to take care of Black women. They need to look and quit being the victim, take care of the women, put the women first, appreciate Black women, appreciate not just their beauty and their body, but appreciate their heart, mind, and soul, appreciate the love they have, and give them the love, affection, and everything they need and deserve to have. Put them first. Make them the standard of beauty. Okay? Make the Black woman the most valuable woman with you, which she is the most valuable woman on earth, but you need to treat her as such. And, stop blaming Black women and white men and white supremacy. Start blaming yourself and take accountability. That's what I would say they need to do. If you say you're the best, prove you're the best. Marry the women in your community. Uphold the family. And look, we don't want to see Black families torn apart. Most of us don't, because it affects us all. I don't like to see any family torn apart. I wish the Black community marriage rate was 90%, but it's not. I wish that, because Black women would be happy and being taken care of and would be treated how they need to be treated. But since that's not happening, Black women need to open up their options. And you can agree or disagree. I don't care. But if you love Black women, you need to do what's best for Black women. And Black women, you know what's best for you more than anybody. Okay? And if that man can't provide for you, can't at least marry you after impregnating you, get away. Just you know what? Break contact and divest. Yeah, okay. White women are leaving white men in droves. That's their choice, and I don't care. If that makes them happy, I welcome it.
That's wonderful.
Hey, white women, go marry Black men. Do it. I'm promoting it. David H. Hey, I'm speaking for you, brother. Maybe you get you a white woman.
Right.
But all seriousness, ladies, put yourself first, okay, and be with the man that puts you first. But this report, these stats, they're important. Okay, and I apologize those graphs kind of they confuse me and stuff. And this is my first time going into this. But from what I picked out of it, there's a disturbing pattern taking place, even way back, and it's getting worse. So, ladies, do what's best for you. Protect yourself. Black women, uplift other Black women, okay? Uplift each other. And I'd say white men, treat Black women well, you know, because a lot of what Black women went through is all of our fault. And yes, white men, it's our fault, whether we ever met a Black woman or not. It's time that we started being real men in our country and our society of all races. And it's time we marry the women we choose to be with. Okay. But Black women, look, my opinion is divest. I know people are going to hate me for that. I might even lose people on my channel for even saying that. That's okay. I just telling you what I think's best. But anyway, I enjoyed this live tonight, pro-white leadership. I learned a lot from this, and I will be looking at this report. I have it. I've heard about it, and this is the first time we went through it. And but I learned a lot. And you know what? I'm definitely going to go into this deeper and really get to know what really came out of this. And I'm going to look at the here and now. Mostly I study what's going on now. I don't really get into the past so much. But, I mean, it's very interesting. We can see the downhill slope. Okay. But anyway, that's all I got to say about that. This was fun today. I thank Pro-White Leadership having me on the panel. And I apologize I couldn't be more informative with this. But, I appreciate being here. And I hope everybody got something out of this.
Absolutely. And we're definitely going to do a part 2 on this in the near future. Bryn, thank you so much for coming. Please put your channel in my chat box. I just wanted to let everyone know, Bryn, for new viewers, just explain a little bit of your backstory and just letting them know that, you're married to an African-American woman for almost 30 years. I just wanted to go into that just a little bit.
Okay, yeah. My story is, I'm 53 years old right now. I've dated Black women exclusively since 1985 when I was 16. And I got married to my Black wife back in May 19th, 1994. And we have 3 kids, 2 daughters and a son. All our kids, our youngest is 21. Our oldest is 27. So we're up in age. I've been married to my Black wife for over 28 years. So I've been in the interracial marriage. I've dated interracially till then. Black women have always been a preference to me. I've always had love for Black women. And look, my experiences have been awesome along the way. Even before my marriage, Black women are amazing. Now, that's my life story. And I do a channel on YouTube where I talk about interracial marriage. And I tell a little bit about my life, and I talk about relationships and, some things that are going on today. But I do promote interracial relationship. I do support divestment. I think Black women should have the best of all worlds. I appreciate Black women. I love Black women. Thus, I've been married to a Black woman for over 28 years. And I do want to see Black women get the best. I really do. And ladies, and I know some people are in there, Black women don't fall for anything or whatever, but look at the marriage stats and do what's best for you. Don't let a man that looks like you dictate how you live. All right. But my channel is Roadrunner 89 Investment Network. And I'm all for interracial relationships, interracial marriage, and my slogan, if you ever heard it, is swirl to investment, which means interracial date for marriage. I'm for, swirling is great if you're doing it for the right reason, for love and marriage. I'm not for it to see what it's like or because it's trendy. Um, and I believe Black women are the best option, and Black women should have the best option because they are the best. But anyway, I'm sorry. Sometimes I get long winded, and I love to talk, but yeah, that's a little bit about my life, a short story, and how I feel. And my channel is mostly about interracial relationships, but I will cover other things. But if you want to come over and check it out, you're welcome. I'll put it in the chat if you want to come over and check it out. But let me even get to the...
Yes, Brent. So, Brent, thank you so much for coming. Please put your page in my chat box. I'm going to close this out. I appreciate your time, and your opinion is so important, being that you are married successfully to an African-American woman and you have 3 very successful biracial children. I thank you so much for your opinion, and it is extremely needed, and I will definitely see you on the next live.
Okay, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.
Oh, wait, I just put my email.
It's okay.
But Roadrunner 89 Investment Network. Okay, you can email me. That's my email, not my channel. I'm sorry. I'm just...
No problem, Brent.
Yeah, I'm having to do it by cell phone.
No problem. I wanted to thank everyone today for coming to this live. I hope this was informative. I'm going to close this out in about 5 minutes.
Okay, I put it in there. It's Roadrunner 89 Investment Network. Okay, and then investment, it's not a money investment channel. It's a marriage investment channel. Investing in Black women, okay, for love and marriage. That's what the investment is. But thanks for having me, and I appreciate coming on. And I'll see you soon. Pro white male leadership.
Absolutely.
And I'll see you around. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you so much for coming, Brent. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay. Thank you. Have a good one.
You too. Hello, and thank you guys so much for joining my live. I appreciate the support. I wanted to let you guys know, I think that this has been a long time coming. This has been a long time coming with the Monahan reports, and this is something that I have been trying to do for a very long time. I hope that everyone have understood the Monahan reports. Like I said, I am going to make these documents available. I'm going to make the Monahan report available for free for the public, but the other documents will only be for Patreon members. Thank you so much for coming, and I will definitely see you guys on the next live. Also, you may email me at prowhitemaleleadership@gmail.com. Thank you, and have a great day.